with a big picture here and show you where both of our storms are, our hurricane and our tropical storm. And obviously you can pick out where the hurricane is. That's easy to see. Right here, a very strong hurricane and continuing to strengthen as it makes its way toward the Lesser Antilles and actually the U.S. and British Virgin Islands as well. So that's a big concern. Still a long way away from the U.S. mainland. And then this cluster of clouds here is Tropical Storm Hermine. It has developed into a weak tropical storm, and for the most part, whether it's a tropical depression or a tropical storm, the big thing that you're going to have to be concerned about is the amount of rain that comes in. The winds typically aren't strong enough to do a lot of damage, although you should prepare for some gusty winds. They are at 45 miles per hour. This is not far from land, only 135 miles south-southwest of New Orleans. And you'll notice that the motion once again has changed. Yesterday it was nearly stationary through the afternoon. It finally seemed to get a little bit better organized early this morning and then started moving. Now just drifting again. And what we'd really like to see is for it to move. Just move on in before it gets any stronger, get the rain over with, and get that front to kind of pick up the moisture and move it out in a big hurry. Doesn't look like that's going to happen necessarily. So tropical storm warnings are in effect here where you see the red on the map. That includes you from Pensacola through Mobile Bay all the way over to Morgan City in Louisiana. That means tropical storm force winds and coastal flooding, all the things that go along with that, are expected in the next 24 hours. If you're in the watch area, and that's from Pensacola over to Destin, and from Morgan City back over to the Texas-Louisiana border, that means you have the possibility. So if you have a warning, it's time to start taking action. And that may, if you live in low-lying areas, mean time to evacuate. Just wait to get the word from emergency management and be prepared to act. So again, there it is, close to the southeast coastline. If we get in a little bit closer, you can really pick out something here, and that is the circulation at the surface is about in here. The clouds, the thicker clouds, are still off to the east. It's not quite as disorganized as it was yesterday, so has gained a little bit of strength, has organized a little bit better, but again, unless it were to really increase in strength, the biggest concern will continue to be the threat of heavy rain, and we're just starting to get in some bands. This band has come through New Orleans. You get a break, there will be more to come. Landfall is expected overnight tonight. We should continue to see rain through the weekend, anywhere from the coast of Louisiana right through Florida. And then, of course, we'll track that moisture in our forecast. Let's move on and talk about Hurricane George. This one is centered at 15.4 north, 53.5 west. This one could be a major news maker in the next few days. When you get a hurricane, it's different, obviously, than a tropical storm, and that the biggest concern will be the strong winds and the storm surge, although heavy rain is a possibility as well. It's 510 miles now east of the Lesser Antilles. The island's right through here. Winds have increased. They're up to 125 miles per hour, and they're expected to increase even more as we get reconnaissance flying in. We'll get some good information through this afternoon as opposed to estimates from satellite. So we'll be updating you on this today. Movement is west-northwest at 18, moving along at a good clip. 949 millibars is the pressure. We expect to see that drop as this increases in strength. So far, it's hurricane watches that are up for the U.S. and British Virgin Islands down through St. Lucia, including St. Martin, Saba. All of these islands at this point should start preparing for possible hurricane conditions. When the warnings go up, that's when it is really time to act. So now skies are sunny, but you can see this powerful hurricane with a very well-defined eye. Again, heading toward the islands. At this point, looks like there's nothing that's going to keep it from getting possibly even stronger. So we'll be watching that one, and it would be still several more days away from affecting the U.S. mainland. At this point, too early to say whether it will or not, but definitely keep watching it if you live along the coast. Farther east, we have, by the way, one more disturbance here that looks like it has some potential, so we'll still have plenty of other things to talk about even after Hermine and George are gone. Pacific's quiet, though. If we take you a little farther out into the Pacific, the western Pacific, we still have Tropical Storm Todd here going into China with winds at about 60-65 miles per hour, and the Philippines have had a lot of flooding associated with Tropical Storm Vicky, and this one has weakened somewhat and now has about 50 to 55 mile per hour winds. That covers the tropics. A lot to look at. We'll tell you more about what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico next on Weather Center.
Stay with us as our experts continue to track the paths of Hurricane George and Tropical Storm Hermine. Weather Center is coming up after your local forecast.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila, and I want to show you another great innovation in Craftsman hand tools. It's the Craftsman Quick Wrench, exclusively from Sears. The Quick Wrench is a combination wrench with a unique open-end design that makes it work like a ratchet. An ordinary open-end wrench has to be removed and repositioned after every turn. But the Craftsman Quick Wrench stays in continuous contact, making the job faster and easier. And what about those places where a ratchet and socket won't fit? That's where the Quick Wrench really comes in handy. It's made to reach right into tight spaces, and the ratcheting action gets the job done in no time. The Craftsman Quick Wrench can be used almost anywhere, in the garage, in the yard, and in your home. No toolbox is complete without a Quick Wrench set. And because it's a Craftsman hand tool made in America, it's guaranteed forever.
Call now to order your set of 6 Craftsman Quick Wrenches in standard or metric for only $19.99 plus shipping and handling. Use your Sears card or the credit card and call 1-800-750-2112. Call right now.
This is Singing Bob saying adios. Till next time.
Singing Bob.
Hey, I'm home.
Dad.
Guess whose ranch got a new furnace today?
Singing Bob. So when
we are looking up as it approaches the Caribbean, looking at it from a very wide perspective here, even noting here that it's a very large system just by viewing the satellite imagery. I want to point to our system with the immediate threat to the coastal area of the United States, the Gulf of Mexico. We are looking at Hermine, Tropical Storm Hermine. If you've been tracking the center of Hermine, here are the latest data that we can share with you. 28.5, here is the latest data. 28.5 north, 91.1 west. The winds sustained at 45 miles per hour. It was drifting a little bit, but that drift was certainly very northerly, and so we are looking at a northerly direction at this time, and that's probably not a surprise to you, at 7 miles per hour. And so we are beginning to feel the effect of this tropical storm. We've already seen one band of heavy rain and thunderstorms pull through New Orleans a little bit earlier today. We are now looking at additional rain move inland. As a result, we do have, well, first let me share that pressure with you. 100 millibars, the estimated center, the lower pressure area here. Let's look at the advisories. We have a tropical storm watch in effect for the Texas-Louisiana border, and that does go over to the coastal central vicinity of Louisiana. And then as you get closer to New Orleans and all across that southeastern area of New Orleans, we are looking at Louisiana. We are looking at a tropical storm warning. That warning does extend all the way over to the panhandle of Florida, near Pascagoula, Florida. Then once you get over towards Destin, Florida, we are looking at, again, a watch. Now, again, we are currently experiencing some tropical storm conditions, okay? Let's take a look at it from the Caribbean. You'll notice that we are not looking at very much in the way of convection in the Caribbean. However, I just want to remind you that temperatures, water temperatures, and our winds aloft are very favorable for anything coming through this way to be become stronger. Now, out here towards the Gulf, you may recall yesterday that we were looking at the central area out towards more of the midsection. Well, earlier and overnight, we saw it reposition. And if you look at some of the cloud cover right in here, you can see that central area of circulation. Let's take a closer look at it right in here. So a lot of the convection, the showers and the thunderstorms, is actually still to the east of the central area. That's good because it's not as well organized and not as threatening as it possibly could be, okay? But again, it is bringing in a lot of rain and some thunderstorms, and probably some flooding is going to be a threat in the evening, well, this evening, as it does continue to pull to the north, and that's what it's doing. Okay, let's take a look now out towards the Atlantic. We take a look at Hurricane George. Now, Hurricane George, the center is at 15.7 north, 54.4 west. That's the latitude and the longitude. Note immediately, if you've missed watching the Weather Channel in the past hour, that the sustained winds are up 145 miles per hour. That puts it well into Category 4. This is a major storm, a very major storm. It continues also to be very consistent with its westerly movement. And of course, the threat is very real for the Caribbean as we head into the next 12 to 24 hours. And you'll notice here that we have a number of new watches. This does include the U.S. Virgin Islands here, where you see the red over the northern islands of the Caribbean, the Leeward Islands here. We are looking at hurricane warnings. So in the next 24 hours, we could be feeling some effect of what is Hurricane George, a major storm. So certainly conditions are expected to deteriorate, but at this time, it's a real nice day. We're not looking at much. Looking at the visible, and we're losing our daylight hours out here, but I just want to point out we have a very solid deck circulating a very well-defined eye. And even as we lose the daylight, look at the contrast between the cloud cover and the center. It's Very impressive. Taking a look out a little bit further, I want to point out that we have yet another area, a wave here, lots of convection with the cloud tops here. It's very close to George, Hurricane George, and so will it lose some intensity or will it continue to become more organized? We'll have to continue to watch this as well. Certainly that's some concern, but more immediate details on what you can expect with tropical weather, we'll talk to the hurricane expert on board, and that would be John Hope next.
Stay with us as our experts continue to track the paths of Hurricane George and Tropical Storm Hermine. Weather Center is coming up after your local forecast.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Deerdorf. Where would you go for a home equity loan? Let's ask.
Well, banks have the best rates.
But banks only lend money when you don't need it.
Advanta National Bank is different. They lend money to people when they need it.
Right. With my credit?
They made their first loans 45 years ago to teachers who had trouble borrowing. They helped out when others wouldn't.
This is a bank, right?
With customers who get the flexibility only a national bank can offer, right over the phone.
Got to move all your accounts there.
Nope, just call Advanta. One of their loan specialists will show you how to use the equity in your home to pay off all of your bills. Get one low monthly payment and save hundreds of dollars a month, plus a tax deduction.
You'll wait for some board to approve.
You'll get fast approval over the phone. And your money in about 10 days. You don't need to have money in the bank to get money from a bank. To get the loan you want, call Advanta at 1-800-550-4151. You'll see they're different. Hey, they don't keep bankers' hours either.
Everyone enjoys listening to birds, and now you can bring those happy sounds indoors with the official National Audubon Society singing bird clock. At 12 o'clock, you'll hear the haunting call of the owl. And throughout the day, a different bird will sing its song to chime the hour. You'll hear the familiar rock.
Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Channel. You are watching Storm Watch, which is sponsored by Home Depot, and we have a lot to watch tonight. Not only do we have some severe weather in the upper Midwest and heading down into the Plain States with a cold front, but we are watching two tropical systems, a tropical storm coming ashore as we speak here in the Gulf Coast, and a very dangerous hurricane on the verge of a Category 5 hurricane in the Atlantic bearing down on the Lesser Antilles. It is time for the tropical update. Here's the big picture, and our two systems. We have Hermine coming ashore here into the Gulf Coast, but look at this. This is a textbook picture of a hurricane. Very symmetrical, very visible eye. This is George. We'll be talking about George in just a minute, but we come into the Gulf where we can tell you what's happening now with the Tropical Storm Hermine as of 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time, moving north-northeast at 9 miles an hour, about 85 miles south-southwest of New Orleans was the center of this circulation, only about 20 miles off the coast of Louisiana, and should be making landfall here over the next couple of hours. Top winds about 45 miles an hour. We do have tropical storm warnings up from Intracoastal City, Louisiana, around to Pensacola, and tropical storm watches from Pensacola over to Destin, and from Intracoastal City over to the Texas-Louisiana border. Here's what the system looks like. Not all that much in the way of even clouds here on the western side of the system, but here in southeastern Louisiana, where you've already seen way too much rain, we have more rain coming on here in from the mouth of the Mississippi, spreading up in toward New Orleans. So more wet weather on the way, and that is certainly not good news here in around the southeastern Louisiana area, where you've seen flooding from Francis not too long ago. Let us head now out into the Atlantic and get the latest on Hurricane George. As of 8 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, which is the same as Eastern Daylight Time, by the way, top winds 150 miles an hour. 5 more miles an hour on the maximum wind speed, and we have a Category 5 storm on our hands. Centered 420 miles east of Guadalupe, heading west-northwest at 18 miles an hour. Look at the central pressure, 938 millibars, 27.70 inches. Very low pressure. Hurricane warnings now out from Dominica up to Anguilla. Also, the British and U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico under a hurricane watch right now. And this thing is heading in, and weather conditions will deteriorate rapidly as this thing gets closer. Right now, a beautiful day, clear skies here across the islands as we head into the evening, but this is what is coming your way. Look at this picture. You can see right down into the eye of the storm here, right to the sea surface, a very, very symmetrical storm. This is also a very dangerous storm. So if you're viewing us from the Leeward and Windward Islands, please take precautions now. Get them completed and then get ready, because this thing is headed in this general direction, and a very, very dangerous storm. So stay tuned to the Weather Channel. We'll let you know as this thing, as George continues its progress to the west-northwest. We also have 2 active areas of weather here on either side of the Cape Verde Islands. Either one of these could become a tropical depression over the next day or 2, and if one should become a tropical storm, we'd be dealing with Tropical Storm Ivan. No problems here in the eastern Pacific, pretty quiet all told. In the western Pacific, we have Tropical Storm Vicky here into the South China Sea. Not much happening with it at the present time, though it is strengthening somewhat. Here in the U.S., we're watching for some stronger thunderstorms here into the upper Midwest and the Plains states. We do have some of a severe thunderstorm watch left here across parts of southeastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Thunderstorms, though, mostly now to the south and east of Minneapolis. Coming up next is Weather Center. We'll have more details on what is going on with our tropical storm and our hurricane.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Bill Keneally. We are in Biloxi, Mississippi, tracking Tropical Storm Hermine. We'll have a full report on Weather Center coming up next.
This program was sponsored by the Home Depot.
As a customer, you're so important to us that you should have the best price all the time. Why shop somewhere else when you know every day you're going to come in and get that low price?
Home Depot doesn't have sales because we have an everyday low price.
But the competitors have to have the sales because they jack their prices up so high. But we keep our prices low every day.
This is the Weather Channel. I'm Paul Emick. It's Stormwatch time. We'll begin this Stormwatch where we take a look at active weather around the country with a look at the tropics. That's the big area of emphasis right now. A lot of attention being focused here, and for very good reason. I want you to kind of focus your attention at 2 spots. One, of course, being the Gulf Coast. And right here we have kind of some rain coming in, some gusty winds at times too from Tropical Storm Hermine. Also, the other big story would be this Hurricane George, which is moving across the Atlantic presently. Also, as if this weren't enough, a couple of waves moving from the Cape Verde region show pretty strong chances they may actually develop into a classified system before too much longer. It could happen. We'll continue to focus our eyes there and look at that in moments. First things first, close to home here, Tropical Storm Hermine. Present position 75 miles to the south-southwest of New Orleans. It's sustained winds around 40 miles per hour. They're on the center there in a north-northeast drift. That's a good way to put it, just kind of drifting presently. And once it continues to continue its interaction with land here as this goes on, it will weaken. Don't expect much change in the intensity of it now. But once it moves ashore, it should start to weaken a bit. And we've even been seeing images from like around Biloxi tonight. And there have been some heavy rains, which you may see, and some gusty winds. but things have not been exceptionally oppressive here as a result of Hermine coming in. Again, some rain, some wind, but we haven't been dealing with too harsh of a blow here from heavy-duty soaking rains. That could still be a problem as it continues to move in. But again, probably not as heavy as what we dealt with a few days back with Francis that kind of parked the moisture over parts of Louisiana. You'll see a lot of rain, but maybe not over an extended period of days. Presently, we do have tropical storm warnings anywhere from Pensacola to intercoastal city, Louisiana. Right in this area, you need to be prepared for tropical storm conditions. I mean, you could see some exceptional wind and some hefty rain. Also, tropical storm watches from Destin to Pensacola in Florida. Let's look at it right there. That's the deal. That is the tropical storm in this area, Hermine, moving along. Even a Doppler look at things here shows this being a bit of ground clutter, kind of a looking image there, but you can see some of the rain amounts are starting to kind of move in. They start to kick up a bit right through that portion of Louisiana. Another vantage point on here shows another radar image, and you can see we're not dealing with a lot of rain quite to the north of it yet into parts of Mississippi, but right through here, especially around New Orleans, we're getting the Big Easy tonight and more rain, again, destined to move into the Gulf Coast as a result. Elsewhere, Hurricane George, sustained winds around 150 miles per hour, 360 miles east of Guadeloupe. It's moving west-northwest at 18. That's pretty significant. That west-northwesterly motion should continue over at least the next day or two. Pretty sizable system already, as you saw from its intensity there. Think back just in 1995, we had Luis and Marilyn. Those storms interacted with some of the islands in the Caribbean, of course, caused amazing amounts of damage. This storm is as strong as they were, so this is actually a very strong storm moving along. That's why we do have a number of hurricane advisories in effect, including hurricane warnings for a number of islands shaded in red, and also hurricane watches, too. Even tropical storm advisories, which we have because the hurricane force winds may not extend out this far, but the tropical force winds could. That's why we have the tropical storm warnings in effect in a few spots as well. That shows the intensity of the wind there. Pretty dramatic there, right around that center circulation. A lot of windy conditions to be expected. Could be a rough few days here. We'll continue to keep you on top of Hurricane George because it may be moving toward Puerto Rico. We'll look at that again at the top of the hour. A couple of ways moving from the Cape Verde region, and here we could also encounter some development over the next few days. That is a possibility. They look pretty healthy and strong now. Could happen. Also in the Pacific, not as much happening into the eastern Pacific, the extreme eastern Pacific, not dealing with as much in the way of storms right now or storm potential either. Not much taking place there. Okay, coming up on the Weather Channel, we'll talk more about the wilder weather, including some very strong storms popping tonight around portions of Nebraska. We'll look at that next in Weather Center. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Bill Keneally in Biloxi, Mississippi. We continue to track Tropical Storm Hermine. We'll have a full report on Weather Center coming up next.
If you're ready for your own home and money is tight, you're probably asking yourself questions like, what kind of home can we get without a huge down payment? How about top quality homes like these? Or you're wondering, what kind of home can we afford on our income? Say $35,000 or $40,000 a year. What if you can have one like these? And if your credit isn't absolutely perfect, you might worry, what kind of home can we get if our bank turns us down? What if you could have one of these? Or what kind of home can we get when we can't afford mortgage payments higher than our present rent? For many people, it's been homes like these. Now you probably want to know, how can I make this happen for me? Word to George Home Alliance. When others say you can't afford a home, we'll show you how you can. Call this toll-free number for more information, and let's do it.